All right, guys. Ready? Chapter 6, the Ghetto. For Hitler, a new problem came with these victories. There were many Jews in the countries he invaded. Poland alone had 3.3 million Jewish people. What could be done with them? Hitler decided to force Jews to live in separate areas of the city and towns. Just months after the Polish invasion, the first ghettos were created. Before the war's end, there were at least 1,000 ghettos in German-occupied countries. The term ghetto goes back centuries. In the past, it had meant part of the city where Jews were forced to live. During the Third Reich, the ghettos set up by the Nazis were always in the poorest parts of town and never large enough for all the Jews living in them. The Warsaw Ghetto took up only 16 city blocks, yet at one point it housed 500,000 people. Even so, at first, many Jews thought the ghettos weren't such a bad idea. They hoped it might be better to have their own little area free from the Nazi attacks. That proved not to be true. The first biggest ghettos were in Poland, in Lodz and Warsaw. Ghettos were later set up across Eastern Europe. Thousands and thousands of Jews from across the Reich were sent to the larger ones. Some ghettos were small towns and roads were closed off. Others were in wide spaces in city. This says workers built a wall to close off a ghetto. Non-Jews had to move out. Jews had to move in. Jewish councils were selected for running the day-to-day businesses of ghettos. The mayor of one town described families moving into the ghetto, trudging silently through the snow. He wrote that there is a vast crowd of wandering people. The aged were helped by children. There were other women with infants in their arms. All had bundles, blankets, clothing, and rags. Stop, please. Once all the Jews were inside, the ghetto was sealed. It was closed off from the world. High walls, barbed wire, and guarded gates, except for a few Jewish workers. Those carting garbage or digging ditches, for instance. No one was allowed to leave. The penalty for escape was death. If you went too close to the fence, you just got shot, one survivor explained. There they are, going, taking all their stuff, and there they are, trapped inside with the guards. So here we have ghetto, a place where Jews were sent to live, very poor and small. The Warsaw Ghetto, 16 blocks and 500,000, 500,000 people. Look, they're all crammed in. Are they happy or sad? Sad, because is there enough space for everybody? No, and look, there's all barbed wire, and there's people with guns, Nazi soldiers with guns, keeping them inside. They thought it was better to have their own space and not have any Nazis. Look at this. Stop it or I will shoot. Pow, pow, pow. Do you think that they were happy or sad? Yeah, do you think that they thought it was really all that great? No. It ended up being not as great as they thought it was. Yeah, if they tried to leave, they got shot. Because they had to stay inside a very small space where there wasn't enough room. The Jews were cut off other ways too. Printing presses, radios, and telephones were taken away. They couldn't learn what was going on in the outside world or tell anyone about their plight. In the beginning, many residents still had money and food. They tried to make ghetto life seem as normal as possible. For instance, cafes opened in the Warsaw Ghetto. Watchmakers and tailors set up shop. Children went to school, but as time wore on, life got worse. Look, can you see? There she is. What do you see on her vest? What do you see on her vest? Look, what do you see on her vest? Can you see that? A star. A star. Do you see the Jewish star? Yep. The star. See, but there it is. Did you find it? I found it. There were Nazi-run factories in the Lodz and Warsaw ghettos where Jews were forced to make guns and uniform for Hitler's troops. Schools were closed, so students had to meet there in secret. If Nazi officials appeared, the boys and girls quickly hid their books. At any time, Nazis could come into their ghetto and seize men right off the streets. They'd make them build roads or new concentration camps, and sometimes the men wouldn't come back. What do you think happened to them? Yeah, they got killed. Yeah. They ended up in prison camps that they helped build. So look, here we have the Nazi factory. Are they allowed to make things that they need in the ghetto? No, what did they have to make? They had to make Nazi and uniforms for the soldiers. What did the soldiers wear on their arm? Swastika. Good job. And look, they had to go and build more concentration camps, and sometimes they got enslaved in them. Is that good or bad? Yeah, terrible. Fuel and food became scarce. This is a very scary fact. Are you ready? At one point in the Warsaw Ghetto, Nazi limited Jews to 180 calories worth of food each day. That was about the same number of calories as in one bowl of cereal. So all day, they only got one bowl of cereal worth of food in their bellies. Is that enough?
No.
Is that enough to build a concentration camp?
No.
Is that enough to work in a factory?
No.
Is that enough to be able to live each day?
No.
Mm-mm. So do you think that they were fat or skinny? Do you think that their tummies hurt?
Yeah. I scared.
No, you're right. Over time, more and more Jews were brought into the Warsaw Ghetto. From Berlin, from Vienna, from every corner of the Third Reich. With little heat, food, or running water, people began to die. You guys are right. By the spring of 1941, between 5,000 and 6,000 people were dying each month. 5,000 or 6,000 people each month. That means this month in March, thousands of people will have died. Carts collected bodies from the streets every morning. Were they bodies that were alive or dead? Dead. Because they didn't have enough? Mm-hmm. How could people hope to survive? Some planted vegetables. Some smuggled food in. Small children could squeeze through cracks in the wall. Others would wait for Nazi guards to turn away, and then they'd race through the gate to the outside world. They'd exchange money or goods for food. They'd hide the bread or potatoes in their clothes when it seemed safe. They'd hurry back into the ghetto. Mm-hmm. Smuggling was a form of resistance. Resistance meant standing up to the Nazis, fighting back. Resistant groups sprang up in many ghettos. In the Warsaw and Lodz ghettos, young men and women traveled back and forth. Chloe, you'll like this. Back and forth through underground sewer tunnel. Just like the what? The underground. Yeah, so they could travel, except the Underground Railroad wasn't always really underground. But they were hiding. They were able to do things without people seeing them, right? Spread the news of what was happening. It seemed no one cared what was being done to the Jews. For children, ghetto life was especially harsh. There were no parks, no trees. Every day they were hungry. Every day they lived in fear. Would a father or mother or sister or brother be taken away? People struggled to hold on to their religion and take strength from it. When one boy in Lodz named Chaim turned 13, his parents celebrated with a bar mitzvah, an important Jewish ceremony. They gave him half a loaf of bread as a present. I couldn't even imagine for how long they saved it for themselves, he said later. He cried as he ate it. There's the actual underground tunnel where they used to talk to one another. And look, half a loaf of bread. I bet you that was like heaven. because he was probably so hungry. So let's recap. The ghetto is a place where Jews were sent to live. It was very poor and very small. The Warsaw Ghetto was 16 blocks and 500,000 Jewish people, 500,000 people. Could everybody fit?
No.
And it was blocked off. And what happens if you try to escape? They'd shoot you. And the Jewish people thought it would be better, but was it really better? No. How much food did they get a day? One bowl of cereal, the equivalent to one bowl of cereal, that's 180 calories. Could you live off of one bowl of cereal a day? You'd be pretty hungry. You guys eat a lot. You guys would be pretty hungry. Did they have running water? No. Were people dying? How many died in a month? 5,000. 5,000 to 6,000. Yes. Then the Nazis made them build a factory to produce guns and uniforms for the Nazi uniforms, shirts and pants for the Nazi soldiers. Yeah. And they had an underground tunnel where they could tell people what was going on, gather information. They could get food either coming out of the gate and not getting caught, or the little kids went in the cracks of the walls, right? And what did they have to build? Their own jail, which was called what? A concentration camp. And when they went to work there, did they come back?
No.
All right, good job, guys. Thanks. See you again.